Nacho Average TableTalk. Woohoo!
Welcome to Nacho Average TableTalk. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're going to talk about the big box phenomena
Yes.
that's
How
going
big
on.
is too big?
How big is too big? And this is kind of talking about just bigger boxes in general for games,
Yeah.
and then kind of the big box that
Yeah.
first came about as kind of a solution to some popular games that had multiple expansions that may or may not have fit in the initial box. That came for just the initial game. So we're talking
Yeah.
about a little bit of both. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on big boxes and the just in general boxes seemingly getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Because when we were sort of looking at our collection and seeing like how many we had that we called big boxes, and we kind of just started at first with the ones that were technically like big box solutions
Yeah.
versus necessarily just being big box games.
Yeah.
But then we, as we were looking through it, we were laughing because at one point we had Feast for Odin, we had gotten that, and Caverna, and those seemed like really large boxes at the time in our collection, and now they look so small. You even like we're looking at Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, which is just kind of the card
Which
version
I would
of
say is
Terraforming.
that's a decently small box.
It seems like it's a small box, and then you're comparing them, and it was almost the same size as the Feast Road, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like, wow. And then you hold Feast for Odin up against the Everdell big box, which is up there, the complete collection, and you kind of put it sideways, and it kind of is equal to the width of the Everdell complete collection, but you could roll it again, and it doesn't even match the height. It's about
Right.
2.5 widths of that. It would equal the height, and it's not even as deep either.
Right.
So, yeah, you could fit a lot of cavernas into your Everdell complete collection.
Yes, it is crazy to think how much things have changed.
Yes.
But yeah, some of the bigger boxes we have are we've got the Viticulture Wine Crate, we've got the Wingspan Nesting Box, we got the Castles of Burgundy Deluxe
I
Edition.
didn't even go with Scythe next to keep the
I
Stonemaier
I was
train,
thinking of it. We got the Scythe Legendary Box, I think
which
it's called.
so that tells you if they make a tapestry big box, probably gonna get it.
That's probably
Although
going to
everything
get, but I
fits
don't
in
think
there
they will.
pretty good.
They got they.
Although with
That's another thing we got to talk about.
yeah, with revised civilizations, that might be too many to fit in there.
We'll have to see.
So they might need a big box, just like an extra
just
inch.
for that. But yeah, we'll have to see. And then we got the Everdell one that we saw before. Terraforming Mars came out with a big box. Champions of Midgard, Suburbia, Endless Winter, Mex vs. Many, Too Many Bones, The Great Wall, Dwellings of Eldervale, Foundations of Rome, Edge of Darkness, Everrain. So some of those are just big boxes in general, and some of those are games with a bunch all the expansion content and stuff. And then I think the big question for all of this is, do the games get played as often once there is a big box version? Because it is, when you initially think of a big box, or maybe not everyone thinks it. I'm not going to say everyone thinks this way. But I guess when I think of it, I'm like, well, I really, really love Wingspan. Have all the expansions. Would be nice to just have it all in one thing so then I don't have to open up potentially multiple boxes. Although I would say we're still at the point when they released the nesting box that you could probably fit everything still into the main box. You just might have to sort in a certain way and stuff.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is probably the boards, and we do usually play it 2-player, but that is a game that we can play more than that because we all enjoy Wingspan. So they have 2 different types of boards. So then it's like, well, are you going to have 4 of each? Because then that's going to take up a lot of space.
And then
so that
the boards are really what kind of put it over the edge mainly. So then you'd need at least the 2 boxes, one of the expansion boxes and the main box. But I thought, that's probably one of the best examples because that is a game that's typically pretty easy to play, set up, and get going. Like even like Scythe, I would say, takes a little bit longer to put together or get set up and stuff. Maybe once you've played it a few times, you kind of have an idea of the main. If you just have the main box, but then expansions, I don't know if they fit as well into the main original one. But once you do put it into a big box, how easy is it to get it off the shelf? And I would say it's probably the biggest question, so we'll start with it.
Yeah.
I think it does make it harder to get it off the.
We have not played Wingspan in person in a while.
We have not.
Which is sad because for a year when we were getting ready for the World Series of Board Gaming and playing Wingspan there, we were playing it nonstop, and just was really great. It was a game that you just never get tired of for us personally, and now, I mean, it is on Board Game Arena, so
That's
you've
true.
definitely gotten a lot of plays in there. I've
That's
gotten
true.
not nearly as many as you, but still, whenever I feel like, oh, Wingspan, we could play that, and you see the big nesting box, and it's a great storage solution. Pretty good, I think. It's not like the best, but it's pretty dang good, I think.
Pretty good.
But still, it's
Intimidating.
hard to get it out.
It is. It has made an approachable game a lot more intimidating for sure. And it's the same thing with Everdell. That was on our 10 by 10 that we did a couple years ago, and we in that one it was. I mean, the main thing was getting the tree set up, and then the deck of cards is a little thicker in Everdell, so that takes a little bit of time. But everything else, I think when you just had the main box, it's like, oh, it's easy. But the thing with Everdell, it does have some solid expansions.
Yep.
So it is nice to be able to store all those in the same one. And I think the way it did have an insert. I don't know. I don't know that we ever tried to really store. I think we stored maybe Spirecrest. We were able to maybe get it in the main box initially, but I don't remember exactly. But I think that ended up being a tight fit. But I think there's an insert in there, so I don't know if you probably could take that out and fit a little bit more in there.
Yeah, raises it up enough to where you're not
Yeah.
really going to be able to fit too many extra boards.
Yeah, so you probably could have fit some additional content in there, but then it would also be a very stuffed game.
Yeah, and kind of everything kind of mixed together.
Right.
Which I believe I haven't played Everdell Complete Collection yet, or taken it out, but I
It's
assume
not
that
made it
it's...
to the table as much either.
No, I assume that is pretty well separated with the expansion, so that's not all mixed together.
It's there. It is separated.
At least the
but
base
also,
game is separate, I would hope.
It is sort of, I guess. So boards. So it's a layered one. So kind of similar to Castles of Burgundy, and that's the thing with some of these is their storage solutions, which is another point I'd like to talk about. Their storage solutions kind of sometimes, depending on how deep they are, when they're deep like Everdell or Castle of Burgundy, they have like a layer, and then that fits some stuff in it, and then they have another layer that fits some stuff, another layer, and you have to kind of stack it back
Like
up in that order. And then you may have pieces that you need down in the bottom or close to the bottom, and it's like, why is some of these other things on top of it? But that might just be the only way that it works and makes the most sense. It doesn't really make sense that, oh, this board goes up here, and then there's a board down here, and could make it harder to get. But in Everdell, I believe you've got all the boards kind of together in one thing. So they're kind of all stacked together. So they're all together. And then the cards are in kind of like a tuck box. You can separate them kind of similar like you can in Wingspan. I think Terraforming Mars has something you can kind of separate them as well. So I think that is a common thing. If it is a card-driven game, I think they usually have those tuck box systems. So it's kind of all sort of mixed together. It's not like, I wouldn't say like if you said, oh, I want to play this expansion, I wouldn't say, at least from the few times I've played from that, I wouldn't say it's easy for me to be like, oh, yep, all the stuff from that expansion, we got some here, some there, some there. I don't think it's very easy to get that. It's not like, oh, this layer is all Spirecrest, or this layer is, what is it, Belfair, or whatever, Pearlbrook, whatever it might be. So they're kind of blended together, but that one has also made it tough to get Everdell back to the table because it's just intimidating. It's just a lot of content in there, and it's almost hard to take out of the box then too. Even though I think the storage solution overall is pretty good, and I guess we can just kind of just start talking about that and some of these bigger boxes. Is I think if you are having a big box, your storage solution better be pretty good. Make it easier, not only just good in storage, but also good to set the game up.
Set up. Just pull something out, maybe take a lid off, and set it out there on the table is ideal.
And some of these I would say do better than others. Like I said, Wingspan's probably middle of the road.
Yeah, you're always going to
It's
have
kind
to
of
shuffle the cards and
yeah.
things like that, but I mean, other things are pretty basic. Just get your player tokens kind of thing, or
Mhm.
the dice. There's not really that much setup to Wingspan.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think there's really much they could do to really aid the setup with that one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's too much more. Probably not, because yeah, it's mainly the shuffling of cards, deciding which cards you want in the game is really going to be the biggest part of setting up Wingspan. Otherwise, I think the boards are all on the top, and then you take that layer out, and then I think kind of all your eggs and goods that you'd want are in that next layer. So you kind of have everything you need to play, and the cards are in that layer too. So you kind of have everything you need to play in those first two layers, which is nice. But then you get to like Everdell, and it's like 4 or 5 layers. Uh, just makes it tough too to put the stuff back into the box afterwards if you don't play it a lot. So that, yeah, that insert is good, but at this because I think it fits everything pretty well. But at the same time, it's just there's a lot going on in it. But when you have a lot of extra content, that is tough, and that makes me think of Castle of Burgundy too, which I think that one is a good one, but it's also kind of intimidating to put it back in there and stuff.
Yeah.
So both of those games, I would say, after I set them up, I checked to see if people want to either play the game right away again, which can be a little intimidating because they're both medium to longer games already, or if they're going to want to play it like in the next day or two. Because I'm like, then I'd rather just leave it out and play it again while we have it out because it's just kind of a little bit of a pain.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I kind of helped put out and back in the box Castle of Burgundy, and that's another one that you said that was layered, and I think that one does really well on the expansions and where it is. I think most of that is just at the bottom layer on the expansion material, so that makes that very easy. But like you said, it is still a big game with a lot of things that go into their specific spaces, which I don't think that it's too perfect of an insert, which we talked about in another of our table talks about inserts. I think it does a really good job, but still, once your game gets so big, it's still going to always be a little bit of work to get it out.
Yes, 100%. But then you go on the other side of things, and I don't want to pick on like any games in particular. The side legendary box, though.
So it comes with some little tuck boxes.
Some little,
right?
cardboard tuck box, like 3 cardboard tuck boxes.
Don't nearly take up all the space.
No, there's a lot of space in there. And I don't know, I don't want to say that it doesn't, but I don't believe those have like you should put whatever in this, whatever in this. I don't think it does. I could be wrong on that. But it was quite disappointing, I would say, for all the content that is inside. I would say 3 tuck boxes with no like even insert within them to give you any indication of really what's going in there. Just is kind of disappointing. Then everything else is just assuming it's loose, or you're putting like in like I think the plastic inserts that would have been in the expansions and stuff into the box, and maybe that works. But we did get a wooden insert for that works a lot better. But I would say that if you're gonna have that big of a box, I would really want some form of insert that's going to fit stuff. Especially for a game that has expansions and stuff. I understand it's going to be difficult to get it perfect, and that's where got to give like Everdell and Castle of Burgundy, and I think Viticulture also has a wingspan. Got to give them a little leniency with the insert because there's only so well I think you can do it. Just because I think it's probably a hard design to try to fit, especially. I mean, I think you also have to determine we're done with the game, so you have to know what's going into it typically.
Yeah, that is because there's so many additional things to all of these games. There's just like you said, expansions, which you should definitely account for, but then also promos and any custom resources that people can upgrade, which I think with the Stonemaier games especially, I think that is something that a lot of people have done, and I know that they do try to make a little extra room if you do go for maybe the upgraded resources that I think they do sell themselves for Scythe. Otherwise, Wingspan, people have a lot of those, so you do have to factor all those things in, which I think is good to do it, but then at the same time, you kind of don't want to have it very too custom. You want to leave extra room for all of those extra things, and I think that the viticulture one, it feels that way. It doesn't feel like too obvious. This is where this goes. This is where this goes. And I forget exactly what we ended up doing. I think we kind of maybe did we take anything from the original viticulture?
I don't think we did.
Thought there might have been something. I forget what we did.
I don't
with
think
it.
so. I think, but I do think
But I remember
we
there
weren't
being
really
tough
sure what
time
to
of
do.
what to do.
Yeah,
One of the
that is
sections.
the thing too. That's the tough part when you do open it up for if people have custom things and stuff. It just kind of can be like, well, I don't know what's supposed to fit into any of these things. So then I guess you could go to YouTube and hope someone maybe has like a video of,
I
this
know.
is a great way to do it.
For viticulture, we were like, oh, should we film a reboxing? So I was like, sure, I'll film that in the night, kind of after we had unboxed it. Maybe we'll post that, just putting everything back into its place. And like a few minutes in, I was like, yeah, this is not going to see the light of day. This is not going to get posted because I am very confused.
Right.
But,
yeah. But yeah, so I guess kind of with it, we kind of talked about fitting expansion stuff. So, that is a thing too, where if they do put out a big box, or it's already a huge box, and maybe they're not even saying it's done. Like Wingspan, they haven't said it's done, but they've tried to make it all future-proof.
Yep.
Like you said, whatever proof. That's a tough thing too, because you don't know exactly what it's going to be, so then you leave gaps and stuff. I don't know. But I guess too, what do you think on, I guess one of the big selling points, I would say, of a big box is being able to fit that extra content, those expansions and stuff. Do the expansions get played? Most of the time.
That's
For a lot of them that end up having big boxes anyway.
That's the thing.
I don't know.
I think if it's something like Everdell, where you guys had it,
That's true.
and then you're like, this is one of our favorite games, we're going to get the big box, I think that you want to play the expansions every time you get it, which I think that might be a reason why it doesn't get played, because you are ready to explore those things, and then that opens the door to all these different parts of it, where if you just wanted the base game, I think it would have been played a little more in the last, ever since you got it. But I think that in that case you do play the expansions. But if you're getting into it for the first time and it's a complete collection, like Suburbia, I know that included a few different expansions.
Endless Winter.
Endless Winter does as well. If you're getting into it for the first time, I feel like, one, it better be very easily separated. Because this is your first time seeing it, you do not know anything about this. It better be very easy to tell what's expansion and what's not.
Yeah.
And in that case, if you don't have a lot of games and you are just replaying them a lot, you're definitely going to do it. But most of the big boxes, we haven't really touched much of the extra things in them.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of the
Very
deal with
intimidating.
pretty much every kind of Kickstarter type thing nowadays. If they add just extra additional cards to throw in, those will obviously get played.
Right.
But just different modules and different things like that are just so hard to get to, especially when the game is already a big one to set up, a big one to maybe relearn some things and know what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is the thing. Like Everdell, I wonder if we just had individual expansion boxes, make it maybe more approachable, because it's like, okay, I know what things actually go to that, instead of being like, my gosh, there's hundreds of cards, and okay, I think these ones go with it.
Let's check the game components in the expansion rulebook.
Right. It makes it a little bit more overwhelming, and just new to you games, it's like, well, I'm not going to start with the expansion stuff. So then it just kind of sits in the box, and it's always intimidating to go into that, especially when there's 3-4 modules, and it's like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna get to that ever. Then I think that's kind of a tough part too, because it's like, well, I'd like to get to that, but then you look at the box and you're like, if we play it, I should play the expansion. But if I'm going to play the expansion, I'm going to have to relearn the base game, and it just makes it tough. But yeah, and then you've got those where it's like, okay, can understand maybe the box is being bigger. If you really love a game, makes it easier to store it. If it's one of maybe a few games, but then you've got games that are just big for big sake, I think. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think we have a couple of good examples of big boxes, and that would be like Endless Winter and Dwellings of Eldervale.
Yeah, I think that those each fill up their containers very well, and they each. I guess I don't know the Endless Winter as well, but I know Dwellings has amazing.
Did I say Endless Winter?
Yeah.
I meant Dwellings and Mechs vs. Minions.
Oh, Mechs vs. Minions, yeah. So I do know each of those have amazing inserts that do make it very easy to set up the game. Mechs vs. Minions is a little bit of put away from the... you have like 100 minion miniatures that you have to put back into their spots, but I mean that's decently easy. They fit them pretty well. But yeah, I think those ones are giant boxes, but probably need to be that big unless you are going to have everything just completely loose in the box. I think they nailed the storage pretty perfectly.
Yeah, I think both of those are great examples of what you can do with a bigger box, and it works really well. But I think that all comes down to this what we were talking about before with the storage solution. Even though they don't, I guess Dwellings kind of had additional content, so to say, but they were just kind of extra characters and extra. So it kind of was just things that are already in the game. It wasn't like new necessarily mechanisms and stuff for sure. But I got that. We got Champions of Midgard. I guess going back to that. Which, okay, I guess we'll talk about Champions of Midgard and Terraforming Mars, which both came out with big boxes.
Yep.
But they both provided, at least the one that we got, provided additional content inside the big box as well.
Yes.
Or additional things with buying the big box. So with Champions of Midgard,
they had the meeples and
came with different the two expansions, right?
Yeah, that one did come up with the 2 expansions, which you can get separately.
You can get it.
But this one does give you the, I think, Dark Mountains and Valhalla expansions, along with some other little things, like I think, the custom meeples, and then, just a big box to store all of the things. And I think that one, I guess I haven't analyzed the actual storage solution, but I think
that
one, the insert's fine, but
could have maybe been a little better.
A little better, and that one surprisingly doesn't keep us from playing it, I don't think, too often.
I don't think so.
Maybe it's just because we had heard really great things about the expansions, and have then decided that we will always play with them, so it pretty much is just a base game now.
Yeah.
But one thing about that, new covers for big boxes.
Oh boy.
Not living up to the original, and I think that is one of them. I really love the original Champions of Midgard cover, at least with the kind of title, because the Jarl box does not have the title on it. I really do like the blue of the title on there, and would like that on the cover.
I don't mind the new one, but I get where you're coming from. It does look nice. It does have a nice logo on it, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is the same footprint, so you could put the other lid on it. It just wouldn't reach the bottom.
Right. But, man, that's a good point. Some of them do change the cover with these deluxe editions, and then you start like, actually, I like the other one better. Then it brings up that conversation. I guess Terraforming Mars has that problem, too, with the big box. But the one we got, and this one, I think you can just get a bigger version of the box. Or no. I'm trying to remember if you can just get the big box without it. But mine came with the kind of tiles.
Oh, yeah. I think you can get it without it.
I think you can get it without it. I'm not 100% sure. But that was one of our favorite games. And just getting those, it seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
We don't actually have all that much additional Terraforming Mars content. Just, I think, Prelude.
Yeah.
I believe is the only one. So it's not like we really needed it for content or for all the content wise. But that one is another one that hasn't gone to the table really
Yeah,
since,
but
which is weird because it's not like we had it packed with
yeah,
all the expansions, all of that.
But-
Shouldn't really be that
but
intimidating.
I don't feel more intimidated by that one actually. I guess do you feel that way? Because I mean there were
I don't know. I don't know if I almost just forget that it's there now for some reason, even though it's a huge box. I don't know.
It is kind of behind some other things.
It's right next to all these other big boxes that are intimidating. So I wonder if by
just that whole Calyx
comparison
shelf.
that it's like just like, oh gosh, that's Wingspan's intimidating. Oh no, well that's intimidating. Sleeping Gods is on there. Oh, that's
Yeah.
intimidating. So maybe it's just in that area that's like I just associate it with that. Oh gosh, these are all intimidating.
That could be. Because yeah, like you said, we don't really have any extra content for it other than just cosmetic upgrades of the titles.
Right. And that should actually make me want to play it even more because that one is one that benefits from some upgrades, I would say. Yeah. But yeah, let's see here. I guess storage. So that's another thing. Fitting it into a Calyx cube or having to force it onto the top when it doesn't
onto
fit.
the top. Off the screen here we have Endless Winter, Everdell. We have Edge of Darkness, which that is one that we have not gotten into.
We haven't. That's the box too. That's
pretty intimidating. Although the actual components didn't seem that complicated, scary. But yeah, once you can't, no chance of fitting into a Calyx cube, you're gonna have to put it somewhere else. And luckily, we do have space on top. We have a high enough ceiling that we can put it even on top of our 5x5 Calyx shelf. So we have just the whole tops are lined with two big games and just any extra things that we throw up there. But if we didn't have that, that would not feel great having to find somewhere else apart from your game collection to put them. Or just maybe on the ground somewhere you might have to.
Yeah.
It could be an issue.
Yeah, I don't know. Once they start getting that big, it does get to be a problem in that way because they are harder to store. So
could even be scary. Like I wouldn't want to have to get Everdell off the top there.
That's true. It's like 80 pounds.
Fall down, hit me in the head.
Yeah.
Pin me to the ground. I'd be stuck down here calling for help.
Help. Yeah, so I think there is a point where how big is too big.
Yeah.
I think there is a point where they do get too big and too intimidating. But I don't know if I have a solution to it because there are ones that have gotten it to kind of all fit in. Like Tapestry you brought up earlier, they came with initially a little larger than a Ticket to Ride size box or a little deeper.
Yep, a little deeper.
And then they provided an actual storage solution that could go in there and it fits all of their extra content. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And then I thought of, which is kind of sort of its own issue, they could have just started with a bigger box, which is what they're doing now, but Garfield Games has provided kind of Ticket to Ride size boxes to replace kind of their initial smaller box games if you have the expansion content so that it all fits in there, because otherwise some of those get pretty tight because those are already jam-packed full. So I think like there have been ones that are more approachable sizes to a big box, has all the extra content in there. So I think there are ways to do it, but whether or not...
Now I'm just thinking, when you get those expansion content, and we have some cool games that we have some content from Kickstarters that are coming for Cthulhu Death May Die and Marvel United and
Foundations of Rome.
We have a lot of big games coming, and then also like Unmatched, we have so many sets. I'm like, they're lucky that the boxes are really cool and they do look fantastic, kind of stacked on a shelf. Because if they didn't, and it would probably be easier to have everything just kind of together or in something, but we have so much of it that I feel it's probably best to just keep them in their individual boxes. But for a system where you just pick and choose out of the boxes, I don't know which would be better. And I think the same way for Marvel United, when we do eventually get all that stuff,
there's got to be a way to get the characters.
I feel like that one's a little worse in that situation. Like Unmatched, it's like pick a character. Marvel United, it's like pick whatever heroes you want, pick the villain you want, maybe a game mode you want. That one, not looking forward to figuring that part out.
We'll have to figure that out.
Cthulhu, it's like there's no box that could fit all that because
Right.
there's a lot of large miniatures. There's going to be like 70 character sheets.
Right.
So that one as well, I'm not sure what we're going to do. I don't think there's any box big enough. It would have to be twice the size of Everdell.
Yeah.
Which,
And that kind of reminds me a little bit of the Great Wall, which I think I mentioned, and that one has a pretty large box to start off with, and then there's things that you do like put together. Um,
oh, yeah.
some of these
Kinda like,
little walls, and once you put them together, I don't think there's a way to get the initial box closed again while they're still together. So you have to take them back apart, which I have obviously not done. But that's another one that's like
yeah.
full to the brim. It's got expansions, and they do not fit in that. And these things don't even fit in the expansion box. So I'm like, oh, that's
wow,
a
not even
big
in the
problem.
expansion box?
That's a big problem. But
That is.
they've all got in. I mean, they've got tons of miniatures, and they're all in. They're different plastic inserts, which is what makes it tough because
Yeah.
you'd have to take them out of there and have them loose. Pretty much, that's
yeah,
the only
and
way
that's
to.
just. It's so nice when they do fit in there nice. You don't want
Yeah.
to remove that.
You know. But yeah, you mentioned Unmatched. I was also thinking because we have a lot of Root. I'm surprised Root has not come up with a storage solution,
They're
but I
gonna
wonder
keep
if that would
making
be.
expansions,
I
probably.
wonder if that would be. I don't know if that one. I don't know how big it'd have to be because their boxes right now are actually kind of pretty thin,
pretty
and
thin.
they've pretty much are just as big as the board itself.
Yeah.
As the board in the game. So I don't know how big their storage solution would have to be. So that might actually be a nice approachable one.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
would just have to fit all the boards.
Yeah, I think that
which I don't
definitely
think there's
fit
that
in a
many.
Calyx Cube, I would think. Because
Yeah.
I think all of it does currently in our boxes, but I don't know. We don't have all of it.
I don't think so.
Not yet.
And then I was also thinking Ticket to Ride I don't think has a solution. I'm surprised that one
No.
doesn't because I think it would all be boards, and the boards I think are all fold into the same size.
That would get
So I'm
pretty thick,
surprised-
though.
Yeah, that's
pretty
true. I don't know
thick.
how you'd get them out.
Yeah, I
You'd
don't
have
know.
to
The
have.
only
I guess you could stack them sideways.
Yeah, just have it like a really deep box.
Huge
have them
box.
stacked sideways, but then you'd have to figure out which one is which, and
Yeah.
each set kind of comes with their own extra thing. That one's
Yeah, I don't know if
probably best just to keep them
Yeah,
separate.
that's true.
Because they're pretty thin boxes as is, but even though they're still so thin,
Yeah.
they still waste space with their insert,
That's
at least
true.
the ones we've seen.
Yeah. So, yeah, that'd be interesting to see if they did do it, how well received that would be or not received well. Yeah, that's kind of what we've got on that. I think overall I don't know, medium to negative thoughts on big boxes probably. Like the idea. I like the idea of the big box. But if I'm being realistic and honest, they just don't get played as often.
Yeah.
They're just much more intimidating, even if the game itself, like Wingspan. Wingspan is not, I don't think, for some people, maybe intimidating, but I just don't think it's that intimidating for me personally, and I'm intimidated by the box, which
yeah,
is
and it really
not good.
It really
'Cause
shouldn't
it's
be.
not-
I think
it's
we're
not that hard of bad of an insert either, so
yeah,
I don't know.
I feel like we're wrong in that one, just because
Yeah.
it is just the same cards that always
Yeah.
were there. It just is a big box now, and maybe it's because it's underneath that giant Glenmore 2 box. It's like, how are you even going to slide it out of there?
With all those chronicles.
But yeah, never touched those. Although you've played a lot of those.
Yeah, I've played some of those.
But yeah, Everdell I think is the biggest one where that's the biggest separation of what the game is, what kind of game it is.
Yeah.
Medium weight, I would say.
Mhm.
Pretty approachable. And then just how intimidating it is. It's like, this should not be, it should never, ever, ever have felt like that.
No,
Like just this
that's
big,
true.
imposing figure that you're like, I don't even want to approach it.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I think that is the biggest. That is the biggest one out of
But
all
at the
ones we
same
have.
time, it does have great inserts, and that is
it
about
works.
how big it has to be to fit all the number of expansions
Yeah.
that they have.
Yeah, that's true. It is like 5, 6 expansions in
Yeah.
there. So I mean, it makes sense why it is, but yeah, it's just tough,
Yeah.
intimidating. But yeah, so if you've made it this far, we appreciate you watching this far. If you could give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, we definitely appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see future talks. Let us know if you have any other topics you'd like us to talk about. Or go back and look at previous ones we've done. But otherwise, we hope to see you on those videos, and as always, don't forget to
Keep on nibbling.
on our content.